Welcome to Click Yak Boom.
All right, so welcome everyone to Click Yak Boom. I'm Justin Hoerner. I'm a graphic designer.
I'm Ryan Fox, graphic designer, also.
And I'm Michael Lopez, graphic designer too. So there we go.
All right, so this is our first attempt, but so please bear with us. But what we want to kind of accomplish today is just to kind of give you some insight on how we actually approach a new project. So we're going to go through a variety of different scenarios. It could be naming, it could be coming up with branding, coming up conceptually. How are we going to approach the marketing collateral, things like that. So we're just going to kind of have a conversation, and we may go off tangent a couple of times, but we're just going to kind of have a good time. So, okay, so all right, guys.
Anyways.
So the first thing that we typically do, especially when we're doing naming, is what? What do we typically do as far as naming?
Naming wise, obviously you kind of want to first start having your look and feel, more of like what they're kind of going for, right?
Yeah, I would say we'd want to consider, the client's vision for this. Sure.
Start with research. Where's it going to be at? Who's the demographic and stuff? So research the area and things along the lines. That.
Yeah, I would say, for instance, the research is definitely number one for when we're trying to come up with a good idea for a name. A lot of times you can relate it to something that is there. We do marketing for apartments, so we consider the area. So we might include the name. So if the name has any type of like real importance, we might include it. If we end up having if we want to have a certain feel, like for instance, we had an apartment that was called Lux. They really wanted to push the luxury brand or just kind of idea for that particular project. And yeah.
Whenever you go and looking for mood stuff, what do you search? Because we all search something different. You go to Pinterest or you go to Behance or...
Name-wise, I will probably do some article searching for... we do new developments a lot of times, so a lot of times we will have articles that have been written about the project, and some of them have preliminary names. You might have one that has, for instance, the Katy was originally called Katy Station.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you kind of get an idea of where they're going with the name. And then what's important to them is the Katy for them was very it was the selling feature, being at it was technically the end of the Katy, but having direct access to the trail.
Mm-hmm.
You can go all the way up, all the way back, and it's a good little hike. So that although I will say there's one pitfall that you will have with naming is you name something that has a lot of heat on it already. So like for instance, the Katy, there are a lot of things using the Katy here in Dallas already. You have the Katy Ice House, the Katy Trail itself has a website and all that stuff. So you're going to be competing with all of these other entities that are pretty active already.
Yeah, so if somebody searches the Katy, then that's already going to come up. So you want to steer away from that a little.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're searching the Katy Dallas, you're going to be competing against all the social media posts that were made by people who are writing about the Katy Trail, about why it's great.
Yeah, I just took a hike on the Katy Trail, and then
yes,
it's an extra post that you have to beat up.
The Katy Trail Dallas is their actual URL, but it's going to struggle even being the actual URL. As far as like a generic, an organic Google search. It's just, in my opinion, it wasn't the right thing. you could have still incorporated Katie into it, maybe like the tag or something like that. You could have said, life on the Katy Trail, or something that kind of alluded to that it was,
Right.
what the value of it
Right.
was, and then you could still get those Katy hits, and just in case somebody happens to, search Katy Dallas, but there's only 5 that really kind of show up,
Yeah.
you might be the 5th one.
Mhm.
So there could be value there, but
Right. And ultimately, like, when it comes to the naming process and everything, like, it's really tough now to actually even name something solely because there's
So many.
and what almost we're
So
2017,
many,
almost
yeah.
2018. How many things are already named the Katy or named something trail? Like
Yeah, just
everything,
put
it's
.com
about
and
being
search
unique.
for it.
It's tough. It's finding that uniqueness about the
Yeah.
property or the brand or the project.
well, it takes it even further because we do a lot of new developments, but think about, like, for instance, with Summit House, with the Highland Midtown in Arkansas, that one is a refurb. So that one already had its first chance
Mhm.
with the Summit House, and now it's the Highland Midtown. So that particular building has had a lifespan that has allowed it to have 2 different names, and that's 2 different unoriginal names now. If you try to to utilize them, and then 2 more URLs that are taken, and it's just like, golly, how do you come up with it?
Yeah.
Speaking of URLs, that is something that is, I think, a really underutilized way of branding is when you start thinking about a name. You really should think about how you can make your name work with a URL, but make it interesting too. So, like, for instance, these, I don't know if you've ever seen them. I think we talked briefly in a meeting the other day about the extensions, how they're the new ones that they're coming out with. .life.
It's not just
and-
.com anymore or .net.
Yeah. And it's so great because then you can have somebody, who might have the URL, and then you just do a .life or even, I don't really see an issue with like a .rent, or because a lot of clients
Mhm.
that I've had in the past are very particular about things like the word rent and all that kind of stuff. Like it's or
Implying that
or even
it's
like
not
calling it a
yours.
unit,
Yeah.
right? Like a little quirky stuff like, oh, I don't want to call it a unit, it's a home or
And a
a
lot of
residence.
those, yeah, right. And a
Because
lot
they
of
don't
those
want you to
have-
think it's a cookie cutter. Yeah.
Right, and and more than not, those type of ending extensions on a URL are for a specific purpose, for say rent or say restaurant or
Yeah.
so on and so
Yeah.
forth. But I don't see a problem, using
Yeah.
if it's for a purpose,
Well-
you need to have your name.
Well, let me ask you this, because I've had people push back on URLs, those other extensions, because they're like, well, how are they going to know that that's the URL? And I'm like, to me, I feel like in this day and age, most people get it.
Yeah.
And if you're old enough to not understand it, you're probably not going to live there. But they will say, well, but those are the people that are going to
with
rent.
the money.
Well,
yeah. You have the rich
that may
old
be
white
true.
lady that's like, what does that mean?
That may be true, but when was the last time you saw a URL and you try to type it in, got it wrong, and go, well, I guess I'm not going to find it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You
You
usually
Google
go
it.
Google it.
Yeah. It's to me.
When's the last time you actually typed in
I haven't
.com
typed it.
too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
because
put the name and look for the hits.
Your address bar in your
Oh, for sure.
your browser is already just set up for Google search, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
But
Don't
then-
have.
What
an
about
issue.
the way people search? So you have to think about that too. You're talking about the name. So there's someone's like, oh, I live at the K, or there's some instances where you don't expect your name to for people to apply it that way.
Right.
So how would you come at that?
At the beginning of a project, naming wise, once you start doing your, you have your whatever brain bubble circles where you have, basically our naming process.
Yeah. Your word maps.
I know that's kind of like what we're talking about, but in part of those naming process, I think it's a great habit to start getting in is like finding URLs at the same time while you're naming.
Okay,
Because, and went a long way around to get that out, but what I'm trying to say is, when you're searching for a name, do a URL search at the same time, because you're not going to know what's out there, what's taken.
Yeah, but you mean URL on a domain purchasing site,
Right,
not
right.
yeah, because there are actual bots that will monitor things that are searched. So if you just go to Google and you try to search,
Incognito window.
yeah, it's not a good idea, because then what ends up happening is they'll buy it, they'll hold it hostage for you, from you, so that you have to spend a bunch of money on it. And that's how they make money, or even. And that's the other thing too, is you typically, if you're, would be advice for developers is, unless you're 100% rock solid on your name, you don't say that, and you've already bought the URL, you don't say that that's your name.
What it is, yeah.
Yeah, because people will buy it, and then they will hold it hostage, and then you'll have to spend a bunch of money, or you'll have some really crazy random URL where you have to put APTS or apartments or something silly like that on the end of it that you don't want to have to do. Especially long URLs, it's a beat down for the consumer, and then on top of that, it's pretty much a beat down for
the designer.
Yeah,
too.
for the design, for sure.
Any kind of design you make, whenever the URL is extremely long, it hurts.
Yeah,
because you have a certain setup, you already a layout.
And then you're doing you're gonna have the person's name. You're gonna say it's John Smith. It could be John.Smith. Some people do a long one, and then it's at the whole apartment name, apartments.com, and it's like 30 letters. That's
for
just
an email, and especially if the name isn't Smith, it's some
Crazy.
random Kazakhstani name.
Kazakhstani. Yeah.
That's a people, right?
Kazakhstani.
Decided we chose mine and worked to those strengths. And
yeah, like he said, he was
and
searching
strengthen
articles and stuff. I haven't
weaknesses.
searched articles like that before. So
When you
search articles, like as far as what? What do you mean?
So like if you know where the site is, a lot of times you can search the address, and it will tell you, especially if you know who the developer is.
Mm-hmm.
And the developer will have we have like I know there were several articles that that Katie came out with. They were labeled Katie Station for something different, but I knew it was that one because of the amount of units and also the location, because it said it was in Victory Park. So reading it, you can get a really good idea, because they talk about like the demo, they talk about like target market. A lot of times they even go into depth about like price per square foot, so you know whether or not it's a pricey place or not.
Mm-hmm.
So in generic stuff, I mean, they don't really have a whole lot of details.
But sometimes you can pick stuff up from it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to be able to say, like, they'll tell you why that spot is good. So like, for instance, they would have, so if you didn't live in Dallas and you looked at that article, you would be able to go to that article and go, okay, so apparently the Katy Trail is a big deal, because this whole article is about
And
access.
that's whenever you go to search the Katy Trail, and then you see all this extra stuff. You're like, oh, there's fitness, and there's bars, and there's shopping. Yeah.
And that's the research process.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, for instance, the one in the Marley, that one had several ones, and that's how you can kind of research and tell, like, why are they building there?
Yeah.
Because the developers will tell these newspapers to get
some traction.
Yeah. And that's one way to
like ultimately, what I always, when we go and start like a Marlena project, any whether it be apartment complex or not, just a brand in general, because ultimately apartment complexes are their own brands. We're just basically we're branding, we're giving them a look, we're giving them a feel, we're giving them an essence and a life about it. Come on. An essence and a life about each apartment complex. I
Next time I'll bring it.
Personally, I always have a trouble sometimes connecting what the apartment should kind of feel and the actual look itself. So like
that also it holds me back. So whenever I sit down, I'll get into my little box like, oh, what should it do? What should it do? But you have to remember.
You start looking at Pinterest.
Or no, you have to remember that
That's what I do.
it's not. It doesn't have to do anything. You're the one that's molding it to do something. So you're the one in control. So whenever you set the rules, you're like, oh, that rule I can break it and set it again. Because we're at the beginning process.
Well, and a lot of times, I can tell you how many times it's happened to me that I have an idea for what it's going to look like, and then I can't make it work the whole way through, and I have to pivot. So, I just wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, we do want to we could probably put it in like these really like high level categories. Okay, is it going to be more luxury, or is it going to be more hip? Is it going to be more urban, or is it going to be more industrial? And that'll pretty much give you a fairly reasonable path for what you want it to look like. Yeah, bird eye view of it though. For instance, Victor Prosper. It's not that. It's very unique, so I guess it serves its purpose, right? So, and my whole point of bringing that up is that the name is not super. It's not like the Holy Grail.
It doesn't
like
mean
you get
anything.
it like you get it 100% right. Oh, it solves all your problems.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like overthink the name. Because actually, I think it came out good, even though I was very concerned about having such a weird name. Like having it be somebody's like name seemed very weird to me, but maybe that's what makes it good. Is because it makes you uncomfortable almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, well, we'll have to see.
Oh yeah, I think it turned out amazing. It looked great.
Yeah, it came out pretty good. I'm excited about it. They ended up picking the craft like we wanted.
Yeah.
We didn't have to debate that, which is nice. And
yeah, that'll come out nice.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we did naming. We did preliminary. Did we talk about concept? I think we got.
We didn't do too much of that. We did Mac versus PC. We did.
Yeah.
Just randoms.
Well, so as far as doing an actual concepting, I mean, pretty much what we do here is we just kind of research the area. So we started off with the articles thing, I think.
Yeah, articles and
articles.
Grab some mood.
And then we can do some mood to try to drive, things that are related to, things that are important to apartment complexes. So, but it would be different if it's, if it's a soda. Things that the research is going to be different than it is for an apartment complex, right?
Whenever my first job, I worked for a company that all their clients were doctors, and they were in was it eyes? I forgot what it's like, cataracts and all that, and then vascular diseases and stuff. So whenever I went to design a project, I had to soak in all this new knowledge on medical terms and everything. And because if I wanted to lay out a brochure, I had to make sure things linked up, and I had to understand where things are going. So whenever you approach something brand new, you're like open to this whole new world. And then like we were marketing to 60-plus-year-old people, and
You just don't know really where to start with that.
Yeah, it's like,
what?
How do I do that?
Where do I kind of like carve that idea and that inspiration?
Yeah, what I learned quickly was that you have to make the letters a little bit larger for them, especially if they're looking at eye surgery.
No 6-point font there.
Yeah, you got to bump your font up a little bit. But so like with your first time in soda or something, you need to do a lot of background research before you jump in, because what is everybody else doing, and why are they doing that whenever you should do this? But it doesn't make sense until you know why. Yeah.
Well, I would say probably soda's probably a little bit easier, because you can really, hopefully by that point,
Well, everyone
If-
messes
if-
with soda.
well,
Everyone knows soda. Yeah.
If there is a new soda, you're probably going to have a reason for a new soda
Mhm.
because, places like Coke and stuff like that are going to have their
They
own.
already have the market. Yeah.
So if you're coming up with something completely original, you
Mhm.
probably have a niche anyways,
Mhm.
right? So you're going to have like the purpose. So if it is like, a new, like a stevia type soda or something like that, you're going to have what makes you unique, a why
Mhm.
that's can drive your your branding to begin with.
Right.
And that's the other thing too, is that there is a difference between branding and marketing that I don't think people don't
Yeah.
fully understand and realize and acknowledge.
Thank you so much for watching and or listening to Click Act Boom. If you're on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe. If you want to get to know more about Justin, Michael, or Ryan, check out your screen or click on the description below for our contact information. Cheers.